Welcome back to the Truck Show Podcast, once again coming to you from the Pod Shed in Huntington Beach, California. And it's been a busy week. If you're hearing this right now, most likely I'm in Washington, D.C. for the SEMA Fly-In Rally, and I'll be up there with a bunch of other enthusiasts, speaking to lawmakers, once again to promote the automotive aftermarket, and looking forward to another great experience with our friends at SEMA. Going to be doing land use and ADAS and right to repair, all that stuff. So we're going to be advocating for the aftermarket, which we, of course, love to do. And then after that, I'll be home for a couple days. Actually, I don't even know if I'll be home. I think I'm going to a softball tournament because I got sucked into being the one of the 8U All-Star coaches for my daughter's softball team. So we go right down to San Diego for a tournament. And then after that, I'm headed out to Overland Expo in Flagstaff. And I'll be busy promoting Orba and do some OVR stuff out there. And hopefully I'll get some podcast interviews. Wow, it's busy. So with so much going on, I figured we'd get right into this week's show because I'm actually about to go get on an airplane. So hopefully you'll really appreciate it. If you've been following our Have You Heard episodes or paying attention to the automotive industry, you may have concerns about the abundance of engine failures and warranty issues across the industry. There's the Pentastar cams, there's the GM V8s, there's the Toyota V6s, all sorts of stuff. And if you go online, people are talking about, no, you need thicker oil, higher viscosity, or higher quality oil. Well, we say let's ask the experts. So on this episode, we're going to be welcoming back our friends from AMSOIL, and we're going to talk about oil viscosity, oil quality, and a few of their newer products to get you the info you need to choose the right oil for your truck. And I'm really proud of this interview. It was really good. There's so much great information. I think you guys are going to love it. And before we get started, of course, we have to thank the people that make the Truck Show Podcast possible. The Truck Show Podcast is proudly brought to you in partnership with AMSOIL, and you know AMSOIL. They're on the show. They make the best synthetics. Did you know AMSOIL is more than synthetic oil? They make lubricants, greases, additives, filters, car care products, and merch. We use AMSOIL products to protect our rigs, and you can do the same by heading to truckshowpodcast.com and using our special link under the featured products section. Do you need a knife? Then point your browser to kershaw.kaiusa.com and explore their line of exceptional pocket knives. They have a huge selection of quality knives from EDCs and ones made in America, and yes, even automatics. Score one for yourself today. If you want to treat yourself to the latest in adventure, gear, and upgrades for your vehicle, go to OVRmag.com and use the code @TruckShowPodcast for a discount on print or access to our digital library for 1 year for free. Please help me to keep the Truck Show Podcast free by supporting our sponsors or leaving reviews on Apple or Spotify. And don't forget to check the Truck Show Podcast website for the latest deals.
The Truck Show. We're going to show you what we know. We're going to answer what the truck, 'cause truck rhymes with the Truck Show. We have the lifted, we have the lowered, and everything in between. We'll talk about trucks that run on diesel, electricity, and on gasoline. The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show. Oh, oh.
It's the Truck Show with your host, Holman.
And happy to be your host, but I've got a plane to catch. Literally, as soon as I'm doing this recording, I'm headed to the airport, and I will be in, like I said, D.C. for a week. So I'll try and get you guys an episode while I'm out on the road, but we'll get this one out for you. And without further ado, we welcome back to the show our friends from AMSOIL, Eric and Garrett. And guys, I'm telling you, I think you're going to find this interview exceptionally informative and one you definitely don't want to miss. All right, I'm so excited to have our friends from AMSOIL back on the podcast. And as you guys know, AMSOIL has been a massive partner to the Truck Show Podcast for a number of years now, and they just renewed for another year. So we've got a lot of great AMSOIL content coming your way. So with me today is Eric Johnson and Garrett Gabot, and you guys are both product development engineers. One of you is a staff product development engineer. The other is just a normal, everyday product development engineer. So I'll let you guys fight over the nuance, and you guys can arm wrestle for who has seniority on this one. But the point is, it's not often that you get two product development engineers from an oil company on a podcast where we can ask any question we want. And AMSOIL has been so amazing to give us the access to you two today. So thanks for joining us.
Absolutely happy to be on the call. And if there's an answer that I give that you don't like, I'll just blame it on Eric.
There you go. Yeah. Thanks for having us on.
Well, we'll just edit out all the answers I don't like and just put only what we like out there. The magic of podcasting. All right, before we get started, I've got to play our jingle. And I think on this episode, we're going to do a deep dive.
Prepare to dive.
Prepare to dive!
Aye, Captain! Captain, we're too deep!
There's no such thing as too deep. Okay, that was too deep.
All right, so I don't know if we're going that deep today. The nice thing about AMSOIL is it doesn't make any of your machinery do those kinds of noises, which is why we love it so much. So one of the things that is going on in the industry right now, and it's huge. And one of the reasons I wanted to have you guys on is because this is a consistent message in my inbox and in the news. We know that the OEs have had quite a bit of engine wear and engine failure in the last, maybe 5 to 10 years of really reliable engine platforms. And it seems like viscosity may be to blame, may not be to blame, but it seems like they've gone for efficiency and they've gone to these lower viscosity oils. And in that, the durability and longevity has changed. So now when you go on the internet, and these are the emails I get from people, they're saying, oh no, this generation of, let's say, the Pentastar that's chewing up cams or something like that, go back to the viscosity of the second generation. Or even, GM with the 6.2 liter L87 engines. That's been a big one. They've had all sorts of failures. First, it was, there's some, machining flaw or something going on in the manufacturing. And then it's like, well, we were at 020 and now we're at 0W40. So even there is some acknowledgement of, hey, higher viscosity might matter and add some durability. Now, the thing is, with AMSOIL, you guys make a really high-quality product. I've been there. I've been to the lab. I've seen all of the additives and what you put into it. And it allows you some more flexibility. I say the biggest advantage is AMSOIL gives you overhead for, I guess, abusing your engine, or gives you some overhead for heavy-duty applications, or gives you some overhead in terms of protection and lubricity and those types of things. And some people say, well, just put a higher quality oil in it, and that will help. Others say put a higher viscosity in it, make it a little bit thicker. And then some people don't understand the difference between a winner weight, which is the W number at the beginning of the viscosity, and the second number. So I thought, can we have you guys on and let's have a viscosity discussion and talk about what you know about these engine failures, what you hear from your customers, and what you're doing on the AMSOIL side to create a product to mitigate that.
Absolutely, and you hit on a lot of good ones out there where people have the opinions of, excuse me, the 6.2 GM. I'm a GM fanboy. I'll be the first to admit it. So, hearing the engines falling out of the sky, the dagger to the heart, and it sucks to hear. Even the Mopar lifters, like I don't mind a Mopar at all. So having the typical lifter tick and then having the collapse happen there, and even the Toyotas, those 3.4s, the Turbo 6 that were in, I believe it's the trucks. Lexus had that as well. That one not necessarily wasn't so much a bad design. It maybe was just from what I knew about that was just some metal shavings, some type of swarf type in the engine. And, I don't know if filter can only pick up so much debris. So when that gets sent around in there, circulates, embeds on stuff, and, asperities in the engine that you need smooth surfaces. And when you have those asperities, you're going to cause wear and those engines are going to go down. So, but we can dive in just quickly to, viscosity.
Let's level set for kind of the rest of the discussion on what is viscosity, what do the numbers mean, and one of the engines you brought up was the Hemi lifter collapse issues. And I've got a 392 in my Jeep, and I use synthetic AMSOIL Signature Series, and it's fantastic. And I still do my oil changes every 5,000 to 6,000 miles religiously, even with a high quality oil, just because I always want to have fresh oil. I know I'm on a heavy duty severe cycle off-roading, heating it up, slow trail ride, and then I'm on the freeway doing 80, and then I'm in stop and go traffic in Los Angeles on the freeway. So I just want to point that out from a customer standpoint. I'm that guy that probably uses the, for my oil change interview, oil quality level above what I really need to, but I love having that insurance and that feeling that I know that I'm going to mitigate as much as possible with these engines because I'm putting the highest quality stuff in there.
Yeah, no, and you hit on a good point of insurance. Cheap insurance isn't very good, right? But to bring it back to let's just say the viscosity. So, in simple terms, layman's terms, a fluid's resistance to flow, right? How thick or how thin a fluid is how you could look at it. So, in a lot of what that resistance comes from is internal friction, even in the oil. And then when you add it to an engine, now you've got parts that move past each other, and you get those moving surfaces. You get energy loss from fluid and drag and whatnot. So what and we can maybe translate that now into what we're seeing with some of those issues. Speak to what GM's using with their current engines pre recall, what their recall solution was, if you want to call it a solution, to certain engines needing to bump up to that 40 weight, and we can move that into how the the Mopar lifter issue might be affected by your viscosity and your weights there. But from what I know, the GM issue is they use 020, I believe, 020 across the board for a lot of their engines, and that is somewhat of a thin fluid, but it's not egregiously thin. I mean, there's some vehicles out there that are taking a 0W8 now, some of those partial hybrids. And a lot of what that comes from, as you alluded to earlier, Sean, is fuel economy. So you've got a thinner fluid that is less resistance on the engine, able to spin more freely, right? So what you have is the manufacturer built this engine in such a way that the bearing tolerances are pretty tight, and bearing tolerance and what your engine oil weight is, it's kind of it's more of an art form. There is some science behind it, but when you ask if you look at, let's see, an LS page on Facebook, everyone's like, oh, what oil do you run? And everyone is this oil with this additive or no additive. You get just within an hour, there's 50 comments of everything in the kitchen sink. So what you have is, manufacturers selected this 020 for a specific reason. I'm not trying to back the engineers, but they
Let me
designed
just
this engine in such a way.
I just want to interject really quick, just because I don't want to move past this topic. You mentioned additives and people online who will buy an oil and then they go and buy some additive package for it. But the reality is if you pay more for the oil up front, it has the additives in it. And so you have people buy cheap oil and then an expensive additive where you could have just gotten AMSOIL from the beginning and had all of that in your oil. And I didn't want to move past that because I feel like people are cheap about the wrong things. And in the end, they spend more than what they would have just to have the right stuff out of the bottle in the first place.
Exactly. You make a really good point. Again, that's another tangent we can just go on. But I'm not going to call out names. That's not my standpoint here in the industry. Is I'm not going to rag on anyone who uses a specific oil or a specific additive. But some of those additives just don't do anything. All they are is a thick base oil. And so when you say you've got 6 quarts in your sump, and you put in 5 quarts of actual oil and 1 quart of a thick base oil, you're just diluting your oil pan, what products you have in your oil pan. So instead of having an actual good quality engine oil that's supposed to do exactly what you need it to for your engine, you're diluting it with something that is supposed to be a mechanic in a bottle, and that's just that. It's old thoughts that need to transition into the new future of, hey, you know what? There's a lot of engine oils out there that are good. You don't need to additize them. It does nothing for you. And a lot of it, there's a couple additives out there. I'm not going to say who, but one has a absolute boatload of phosphorus that they add to it, and all that's going to do is just going to burn off, and it's going to clog your exhaust system, and it's going to cause deposits. It does nothing for you in the long run. Will it potentially fix maybe a little bit of a lifter tick that you got going on right now for a little bit till it shears out, and then in 2,000-3,000 miles your lifter tick is right back to where it was at. You wasted your money, and the
That's just
placebo
how
effect is
you
gone.
that's just how you know you need an oil change. Up, lifter tick's back. Time to change the oil. And
Exactly.
I've been to the lab, by the way, and it was amazing. You guys, when I visited Wisconsin and went to the lab, and you pulled out all of the different vials of all the different additives, so we could see the ones that were gels, the ones that were powders, the ones that were metallic, the ones that were thick, the ones that were thin. I mean, just vial after vial, and you could just see how it's like a mad scientist putting things together, and it just reinforced for me that you guys put so much effort into R&D And going back to thinking about the tighter bearing tolerances on a new V8 or something like that versus maybe an old school engine, and having the right product for that, and formulating in such a way that anybody can grab that bottle and it will work for them. I always am amazed at the people who buy that cheap oil and add just a quart of some sort of weird additive to it. I'm like, just buy this stuff up front, buy it, in the beginning, and you don't have to worry about that. And I don't think people understand that that those additives are usually just in a base oil that is sort of like I guess the base oil is there to contain the additives to mix in and spread around. And I know what you guys do for base oils because I've seen the train cars that back into your facility and go through the vats, and when you mix them, and you guys are already buying a really high quality base oil. There's a lot of companies out there who, I won't name names, but there's companies that do certain marketing gimmicks to a really cheap base oil and raise the price. And there's brands that people are like, oh, I use this particular brand. I'm like, that just has a dye in it. That's not even a really good oil. And there's a number of those types of brands out there that are playing at a price point near or close to AMSOIL to capture that audience, but the quality of the oil is nowhere near what you guys are doing. And I think that's the difference for me is I've seen what you do. I know what you stand behind, what your warranties are. It's a fantastic product, but it also starts with really high quality base oil.
Yeah, exactly. And you hit on it too. The base soil is obviously the foundation. That's in anywhere from 80 to 90% of the fluid, or the oil, I should say, is the base oil. And you can think too, like, let's just for reference, a synthetic blend, still out there in the market. We have one. A lot of people and a lot of companies, I should say, will throw out that they have a synthetic blend, and the percent synthetic of that product is 10%. It's 90% of conventional oil. So yeah, you have a synthetic blend, but it's just a marketing gimmick of it. And even down to how it's built too. I mean, you don't know. Not all moly is the same, right? I mean, there's multiple different moly additives you can put into an oil that will do a little bit slightly different things. Zinc isn't just zinc. Phos isn't just phos. And by phos, I mean phosphorus. So again, to your point, to the R&D behind it, the testing, and everything that goes into it. We can come back post summertime and talk about this our signature series as it unveils, and we'll go into the testing that went into that, just to kind of show you and the listeners about what actually we start from something and end with something, and that process is pretty unbelievable. It's really fun to be a part of.
I'm excited to drill down on that, but I know we're a little bit premature and there's some other things we want to cover, but
yeah, so there's the wild tangent of the additives, the oils you don't need to add to your oil if you just use a fully formulated, good quality oil. But back to the GM, the L87, what I'd like to kind of touch base on is their one solution. So you have, say you're having an issue, or you think you're having an issue, you bring your vehicle in, they scan for the code. You don't have the code, right? It's a certain code. I believe it's something with the crank position sensor notices if there's a little bit of some variance in your crank, maybe a vibration, or however they're monitoring it. If you don't have that issue, their solution, GM's solution, was to bump you to a 40 weight oil. So 020 to a 040. So we'll hit on the 0W right away, because all that really tells you is it's cold weather performance. So the W is essentially a winter rating. What I want to preface too with this, with the W, and have it be winter, just because maybe you don't live in an area that has snow or has air quotes winter, doesn't necessarily mean you need to disregard what that number is. Because even in Moab Desert, what can it get down to in the winter season there? And get down 30 degrees, it can get cold. Oil will flow incredibly different between 30 degrees Fahrenheit and even 75, 80 degrees Fahrenheit when it gets hot, mid-afternoon. So even though you have, you wouldn't consider yourself in winter, negative 25 F like we get here in Superior, Wisconsin quite a bit, that temperature swing isn't linear. It's exponential. So one thing to think about too is with the 020 to 040, they are going to perform the exact same, or they should. If you have a good quality oil that's being built properly, they're tested and they need to pass the same J300 standard um, put out there in the market for A0W. So you got your cold crank. So effectively, that's how you could consider that is if you're going to start your vehicle, starter engages the flywheel, spins over. So how hard that oil or the resistance that oil feels when when you're spinning the engine over, you get that cold crank number. So the lower the number, the better, right? And I know a lot of companies will put their cold crank number out there, so that's kind of a fighting battle. So who's got the best cold crank, right? That's a good indicator of your oil's low temp performance and its viscosity index. So the 020, 040, the 0W, they're the same exact at that cold temperature, or they should be. Now, when it comes to the final number, so the its viscosity rating at temperature 212 F, you've got 20 and a 40. So those are going to be different. So 20 weight, its kinematic viscosity measured in Stokes is anywhere from about 7 to 9 on the scale, and then a 40 weight is 12 and a half to 16.3. I got my little notebook here, my ready reference. Any engineer out there, you got your field notes. So I always have that one handy on me. So people might think that is like a 2-to-1 type ratio, like 40 is twice as thick as a 20. Not quite. It really just depends on how the oil's built. So usually at AMSOIL, you can see if you've got a range of like 7 to 9, you don't want to build on one end or the other. You try to hit that sweet medium. So, between 7 and 9 is about an 8. Between 12 and a 16, 13, 14, right? So it's not quite a 2-to-1 ratio, not quite double that viscosity. So if anyone says, oh, they're just doubling the viscosity, well, not really. And all they're trying to do really is just increase the film thickness and try to get a little more cushion in that crank that might be oscillating inside the bearings. And in all reality, it's a band-aid to what the issue is. I don't think it's a true fix. I don't want to go on record saying, that they're doing it wrong. But I could just see where the direction they're headed. And I don't know if it's going to be a long-term solution. I don't think we've been to that long enough with GM recommending this to fully see if anyone else who, hey, I didn't have this issue. I got 20,000 miles on my engine. I'm running 040. It's been 100,000 miles. I'm still doing good. We haven't been there yet to see if that uptick in viscosity, providing just that little bit of a thicker oil film, is making it for them. So that's kind of my 30-second shake on it is bumping that up. Yep, you're getting some thicker oil film. You're gonna lose some fuel economy, right? Thicker oil is gonna take a little more energy to move. But at the end of the day, it will see. Time will tell if this is going to be a for sure solution for them.
One of the questions I have is you talk about building oil. So how do you change without going too deep or too proprietary or anything, but maybe in layman's terms, how do you go from a 020 to a 040? Like, what is the property change, or what are the additives? Like, what allows one oil to be X, at 212 and another to be Y at 212?
Yep, it's a good question. So a lot of it starts in the base oil. You can get certain types of base oils, how they're treated. They can come in a little bit on the thinner side, a little bit on the thicker side, and then effectively, just to really make it, more layman's terms, it's effectively the viscosity index improvers or the viscosity modifiers, and that's just the polymer chains that you add to the fluid to either thicken it or thin it per its temperature. So if you've got, think of like your phone cord, you took and just ball it up in your hand. That's what the polymer does when it's cold. And what a viscosity index improver, viscosity modifier will do will kind of smoothen that out for you as it heats up. So you've got the way the oil works when it's cold and hot, that polymer just kind of helps regulate it throughout that temperature swing. And it's a very broad way of looking at it from that standpoint. So again, as I alluded to earlier, 80% of the build is the base oil. So you can kind of say, hey, if we're going to build this, you know, let's just say 20 weights to the 40 weights, more than likely, I'm not the chemist per se, but it's got very similar base oil. When you get north of a 40 weight, that base oil kind of changes. You're going to get a different type of stock from your supplier, and that's how you're going to kind of start building out those products
If you've got
from there.
a
So I would say that's the easiest way to explain it.
if you've got a use case where you're more severe duty and towing, does it is a thicker viscosity or higher viscosity oil something that's recommended, or should you always stick to the manufacturer's recommendation, knowing that some of it could be skewed because of fuel economy requirements and may not be optimal for every user? Is there some wiggle room in there? Because I've you go online and people go, oh, I stepped up, I went from a 530 to a 540 or whatever. Well, that's not the manufacturer recommendation, and then the argument is, well, they're only doing that for fuel economy. I want to have durability. Is there something to be said for that?
You could split it either way, right? The manufacturer is building this engine in such a way, and what a lot of the constriction is the fuel economy. That's what they're getting pushed the most. So if you, let's say for instance, I mean, my dad's got a 21 Silverado 1500, the 5.3. He tows a little bit with it. We have a small utility trailer. We got a camper. He has an enclosed trailer. He runs 0-20 all the time. And the reason being is because that's just what the manufacturer recommends for him. If you wanted to bump to a 530, let's say there's some guys out there that, I don't trust the 0-20. They just, in their mind, they're not trusting it. Maybe the engine's a little bit older, everything's loosening up a little bit. You're not going to have an issue going to that 530 at all in that engine. But when you bump up to like 0-40, your fuel economy, you're going to have to, the engine's going to work a little bit more. It's going to be a little more heat in the engine, right? You're working a little bit more. So, and you see that too with there's some videos out there of guys who, not gonna name names, but they had a dyno and they started putting more and more quarts of oil in the engine, and you can see the power started reducing, the temperature was coming up, the pressure was coming up. So a ton of thick oil isn't going to be your answer if you're towing and hauling. At the end of the day, it's what the manufacturer recommends is what you should use. Bumping up a grade's not going to hurt you exponentially, especially if you feel like, at the end of the day, it is your vehicle, right? It is what you want to run. But for me, I run what the manufacturer recommends. And if if you have a rebuilt engine, built yourself, what have you, whatever your bearing tolerances are, that's what the oil you should use for your bearing tolerances. And that's more of an art than a science on those bearing tolerances, because you can get really pokey if you want on that. But no, at the end of the day, if someone's saying, oh, I don't have 20 weight in my GM, I want to put 30 weight in, you could easily do that. You might not see anything substantial, maybe a little fuel economy reduction in there. But we definitely saw it with the 20 to 40 for the L87. But no, for the most part, you're fine bumping up one weight if you really wanted to.
You brought up the old school guys, and so this is a little bit of a side tangent, but I think it's worth covering just because we're in the neighborhood. And that is, you get a lot of guys who come from an older truck, and they may be used to their temp gauge running being 180, 195, and then they get into a new one and they're seeing 205, 209, 215 regularly. And that's one of the reasons. There's a couple of things happening there. One is today's engines typically run hotter for emissions, and that's why it's required by a lot of new truck and SUV manufacturers to have a synthetic oil, because the breakdown point is so much higher on synthetic versus conventional oil. So there's people go, oh, the manufacturer says synthetic, but I don't want to put that. I'm just throwing money. No, the reason is because your engine today runs hotter, and there's I've seen it many times. Somebody buys a new truck, they're like, it's overheating. And it's like, well, is steam coming out? No. Is your needle in the red? No. What's your temp? Well, it's 205, it's 210, and you're going, and it's just that's just the state of where we're at with engines today, especially in trucks. I know the 392 runs a lot hotter than Hemis used to back in the day. And so I think it's important for people to realize if your manufacturer is speccing premium and you've got a vehicle that the consistent operating temp is, the 205, 215 range, you need synthetic oil in there, because when that oil heats up under load, pulling a trailer, pulling a grade, you're going to be breaking down conventional oils pretty quick, where I don't remember what it is. It's somewhere north of, I think, 300 degrees that synthetics can typically still perform at without breaking down, where you start getting that in the mid 200s on a conventional. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that also is more of a tougher question to answer. And to your point, uh, the if you want to get real nerdy, I know we're in the deep dive,
We
but
love getting
anyone
nerdy on
any,
the show.
anyone out there have heard of the Arrhenius rule? That is for every 10 degrees centigrade that you increase the temperature, your oxidation rate doubles on your oil. So if you're running, a conventional back in the day, I had 187 degree thermostat in my 2000 GMC Sierra, the 5.3 at the time. That thing consistently 187. That's where its temps at. I got a 13 Chevy out front right now, same 5.3, but that's 212 all day. So you're about 20 degrees different in temperature, right? So if you look at the Arrhenius rule, every 10 degrees Celsius, roughly, that's about I'm doubling the oxidation rate of the engine oil in my old GMC to my current Chevy, right? And to your point, back in the day, things ran a little bit cooler. Nowadays, there's emissions and there's efficiency too. It's complete fuel combustion as well in that engine. If you have a hotter engine, fuel goes in, boom, spark, you're about 20 degrees warmer, you're going to get a better combustion and more fuel usage out of that hotter running engine. And your oil, unfortunately, is going to pay for it in regards to its oxidation rate. So it's funny you bring that up because that was something that not a lot of people realize is that just small temperature swing can double the oxidation rate of your oil. So to your point, if you've got a synthetic that's running up to 300 degrees Fahrenheit, that's really hot. That's warm. They'll survive, but for how long? It's so dependent on the build of it. Was it, what type of shear stable, additives does it have? Does it have, some cheaper ones? Does it have some more expensive ones? Is the ad pack in it? How is the ad pack built? Is there some things that some light ends are going to volatilize off? So much to that 300F that it's really tough to put a number to. Is 300 okay? Yeah, but for how long? It's really tough to get there. And if you're running 300 degrees Fahrenheit oil,
Yeah, you
something's
got
not
other
right.
problems.
You you got other problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, more of my point was just that you have that overhead, right? So again, we're talking
yep,
about that insurance, and it goes back to why quality synthetics matter and why pay more for a bottle versus something else. Is because that additive package and that base oil matters, and it's going to give you the best performance. And when we talk about when we talk about performance, it's not just your 0 to 60 times, but it's also performance in terms of durability, longevity of the oil change intervals, all those things come into play when we think about oil performance. It's not just the performance of the vehicle, it's how that oil is performing and protecting your vehicle.
correct. Exactly. Yep.
So I know there's some other conversations. I don't know if you're familiar with some of the Pentastar questions about them eating cams and people, going to the Gen 2 viscosity, rolling back to that on the current Gen 3 engines.
Yeah. So the Mopar lifter, so what you have, it's a hydraulic lifter, just like what GM. GM's got a lifter tick too. Mopar's known for it as well. And what you have is not necessarily it's the oil's fault uh, with this engine, but what those lifters are is they're very sensitive to the lubrication system. So I'm unfamiliar with Mopar, how they have, if they're where their pump's located, how long it takes oil to get up to the top of the cylinder head there to help those lifters out. But what you have is effectively, if you get a dirty oil up in there, you get a chunk of debris in there, it's going to block your oil passage. Your lifter is not going to open and close like it's supposed to, collapse and move. And what you have then is the roller on the end of that could seize up, and then you've got sliding wear now on your cam rather than rolling. So the nose of that cam is going to take the brunt of that. It's going to start wearing that one down. You're going to get a little bit of a tick. You got a little bit more space in there now. And then effectively that's just going to keep progressing further and further and further. So there's some ways to get around that, is just obviously high quality oil, high quality filter, monitor your oil as well on some of those engines. If you see an uptick in the types of metals that are common in the upper side of your engine. So you got the aluminums, the coppers, that kind of thing. If you're monitoring, you're seeing a lot more of that. That could be a sign that there might be something going on up there. Um, to look for. So I don't want to necessarily point to Mopar and say design flaw, but there's ways to help mitigate that, and that's keeping your oil clean using a high quality oil, and using, and believe it or not, a high quality fuel as well. If you're using bottom barrel fuel, you're going to deposit more, and that gets directly in the engine. The rings on an engine, on a piston, are not perfect. They can be dang near perfect, but they're not perfect. You're going to get blow by down in the crankcase, and that's going to oxidize your oil, and then you're pumping that back up top.
That's
So
so
it's slippery
important.
slope.
Today, with oil prices and gas prices where they're at, I think that's incredibly important because people are probably cutting some of their budget and getting a lower grade gas just to get by. Well, you're going to have to pay for it in other ways, and that could be, quality of oil or oil change intervals. One thing I'll say is when I owned a Pentastar and they sat for a week or so, you'd get that rattle on startup because everything drained out of the top end. And there's some snake oil devices out there that say, oh, well, we have a check valve and we keep all the oil. I won't go down that road, but it's not really how that works. But what I would say is when I switched over to Signature Series, because you guys have, I guess it would be better stiction or better film, I noticed that when the vehicle stopped and was parked for a while, I didn't get that clatter on startup from the valve train because there was still lubrication left over up there. And so that's one of those things that I could tell immediately just from that, and I just felt so much better about starting it up after it was sitting because I didn't have to worry about the top end being dry because the AMSOIL seemed to have a layer of lubricant that stayed behind as things drained away.
Yeah, exactly. And again, if only this was in July or August. We've got some fun things that we could have discussed.
We'll have you
more.
back. We've got more to talk
Yes,
about.
I will come back and we can bring this up because I've got some fun data to share regarding what I would say is I don't want to say oil staying put, but protection in the area where oil isn't, I don't want to say prevalent or present. But to your point, you shut your engine off, you wait for a week or so, for whatever reason, and you start back up. That oil is drained down, maybe evaporated off a little bit. We can touch more on that.
I'm putting that in my notes right now for next time. We're gonna tackle that.
Yep.
We'll bring that question back to you. I did notice that you guys have a new partnership with Fleece. So moving on over to your diesel oils, you guys make some really fantastic diesel products. Your 4-to-1 additive's awesome. You've got great diesel oil. You've got a whole lineup, and Fleece is one of those great names in the diesel performance world. So maybe we can touch on that here.
Yeah, for sure. No, Fleece is awesome. The guys over at Fleece are great, and we're proud to partner with them. Right, to American companies, family companies, right? And Fleece really wanted a engine oil. They wanted to partner with someone to provide them high quality engine oil. So that's where the Freedom Series came from, that line of oils. So it's a break-in oil, and I believe there's four main viscosities there. So what that oil is it's designed specifically for turbo truck applications. So not over the road, no extended drain, no extended services, with limited spec availability. So just for those equipped Fleece vehicles. So the turbo cleanliness was big for them. Handling the soot of a diesel engine, because I mean, you put fresh oil in a diesel and you start it, and 4 seconds later it's already black.
It's black
right?
again, yeah.
In some of those instances, with good wear protection. So they worked with us, or we worked with them, provided them a really good product for their line of already really good products. So it's just adding to a great product line. So it was a fun little joint venture that we had with them, and it kind of gave us the Freedom Series is kind of a fun word because it took the small shrinking chemical box that we know is the diesel space, and we were able to expand on that a little bit, with not having that to be tied down to severe service, or excuse me, extended services, or the spec availability.
Yeah, I think the diesel world has changed the most probably in the last 5 years. I think part of it is the light duty, like really light duty, not the super duties and whatnot, but the
Yep.
light duty engines going away for emissions. Also, with over regulation and the technology not really being up to snuff, you had a lot of reliability and durability issues with the after treatment, and then going to low sulfur fuels, which changed. A lot of issues with blowing up, pumps and sending shrapnel through the fuel injection system. I mean, all those things have really turned a lot of consumers off of diesel, and the manufacturers obviously were tired of paying for the warranty issues and said, "Well, we're going to go EV and hybrid, so we don't need diesel to pump up our CAFE standards." But you look at the modern diesels in the what we would call on the consumer side heavy duty trucks, and it's amazing the power output and the capability of a modern Duramax, the new Cummins 6.7, of course the Power Stroke, which I think is the class leader in power output. I mean, I'm not one to say like that's enough power, but you drive a Super Duty and you can spin the tires in the first few gears if you want to, just leaving it light. I mean, it's silly.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
It's fun.
What do you guys, what's the strategy behind oil for today's light duty, heavy duty trucks? So that class of the Fords, the Chevys, the Rams, and the fact that they're towing over 30,000 pounds, their payloads are incredible. I mean, it really seems like that has to do everything from daily driving as well. There's a lot of people who take their kids to school, a 5-minute drive, it never even gets up to temp. And they park in their driveway and it's like, 102 degrees or something like that. The cast iron block never even got warm. How do you guys create an oil for today's diesel truck customer that wants to drive it like a minivan, but then also tow their toy hauler behind it and head out to, here in California, we might be Glamis for the weekend or the river with a boat on the back or something. It's got to do all those things.
It does, yeah. And there's no one size fits all shoe to this, right? But and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it just comes down to the base oil. That or 80% of that product is the base oil. So you start with a good base oil, and you can really build from there, right? So and I think we all know there's some new standards coming out for the diesel market. So PC12, that chemical box is just shrinking down, and a lot of it is emissions regulated. And what you have is a reduction in, I believe NOx. There's reduction, so particulate matter. So a lot of the main diesel things, it's coming down. So that chemical box really shrinks. So you have to look in other directions on where can I get my anti-wear additives, where can I get my detergents and dispersants, and you kind of spread that out a little bit, and how you build it. So again, there's a PC12 is on the horizon, definitely in our wheelhouse, and work is going to be starting on what's going to come new there. But again, it just comes down to the base oil, figuring out that additive package, doing the bench tests, doing the work to figure out what works well here, what works well there. And again, it's a lot of like our SIG series passenger car, the gas line, the long-term engine cleanliness, the anti-wear, and then hitting that extended drain interval is where where we live, where we play, and how we built their diesel oil. And that's not going to change with these future new specs. You're going to have the best of the best in our bottle for this diesel market.
Well, you guys kind of have a saying at AMSOIL, and it's you hear good, better, best, but AMSOIL is always best, best, best. You guys are
Correct.
always striving to hit that target of best in every category. But then when you look at your lineup, you've got some value products that have the AMSOIL branding on it, and then you've got some really specialty ones that are like specific to hybrids, specific to high mileage, and you go all the way up to SIG series, which is like the Mac Daddy of engine oil. So how does AMSOIL make best at all those different price points or in those various niches, and still keep that quality and that AMSOIL promise? Because I mean, I want to always have AMSOIL in my vehicle, and it might be a little bit more appealing to go, oh well, here's one that's a few dollars cheaper a bottle. Maybe I want to go with that. What's the trade-off? What are the features and benefits when you kind of do that product walk through the lineup?
Yeah, a great question, and great to bring up too, because I get that a lot. I see that a lot on any social media posts.
Is it really AMSOIL, right?
Yeah. So started off, we have our OE line, so AMSOIL OE. And OE, what we have that set up for is original equipment. So it's an original equipment replacement synthetic for, people who want to follow like a manufacturer recommend guideline. Like you don't care about extended drain intervals, you want something that is, people warranty sensitive. So this is going to be a fully licensed product. There's going to be no spec missing on the OE or the XL. It's going to be used. There's going to be a multitude of uses. It fits in that tight chemical box of, hey, this is going to be your, value is the primary driver on this one, right? So it's designed to do exactly what the owner's manual recommends. So if you're changing your oil at, say, like the new Chevy trucks, I think it's 10,000 miles, 7,500 miles, or it's oil life monitor, right? OE is going to be your person. You don't drive 25,000 miles here. You hardly drive at all, right? That might be an area where OE would shine for you.
But
Now,
it's
taking that up to that,
still a full synthetic, and it still adds
still
that
100% full synthetic,
package,
great
added
add
package.
pack. Yep, it goes toe to toe with any oil out there still. Still very good oil, but it's got that value as the primary driver. And then next in line that we have, if you want to do the best,
Yeah.
keep working your way up, is the XL. So it's effectively balancing that the performance and a drain interval for that added insurance above OE, below Signature Series. So we have XL at about 20,000 miles for 1 year. And that also is people who want that warranty in mind. So you want, you want the extended drain, but you also make sure you got your specifications covered for whatever your vehicle has. So let's just say Dexos 1 Gen 3. Yep, XL's got you, but you don't want to change the oil life monitor. You want to double it. Go to 20,000 miles. Boom, XL's your guy to do that.
And you're talking about, so when you talk about specs, like there's the one knock that you could say AMSOIL has consistently on the forums is like, oh, well, it doesn't have the, the API or excuse me, the SAE, rating on it maybe. But there's reasons for that, especially on SIG. You guys blow the additive package out of the water so that you wouldn't even meet that standard because you so far exceed it. And so some people might go, oh, well, it says on the back it meets these, I guess, the APIs or it meets these specs from manufacturers, and you can read the back of the label, but it's like, where's that certification stamp that you would have had to pay for to get it? The lab tests it, then you have to license it, and that would just make your oil more expensive. And people don't realize that on your really high-end oils that don't have that, it's because it's too good, I guess is the way to put it.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. 6 Series, I don't want to say it's overbuilt because it's built absolutely perfect. But it's got that, it's the extended drain, and it's got that, I don't want to say minimum compliance, but, we took the chemical box and went away with it. We want the best oil, and we find that we are suitable for use in some of these, but we don't have that license, right? We're not paying that royalty. We're not going to bow down to some of the specification owners that say, yep, if you're going to sell 100 gallons of this, I'm going to want X dollars or X cents per gallon. That's just not, an area where we're going to play. So again, 6 Series is going to be that well-built product. It's not going to have it's going to have everything that you need, and it's going to have not everything you don't need, right? It's not going to be a bunch of random stuff thrown together. It's purpose-built and engineered for anything that you might need, and it is the best of the best. So that would be, that's how I would effectively lay out our tiers of oil. So you got OEXL and 6 Series being that top flagship product. So we build to the industry limits, but we also go beyond them, and that's where we have that suitable for use, and the licensing really isn't there for that product.
Yeah, I think
it's still going to do exactly what you need it to do.
I think that that's one of those things is once people understand kind of what your philosophy is and the way you back it up, people go, oh, well, then I'm screwed if I use this before my warranty's up, and they go, you used the wrong oil in it. No, AMSOIL will back you on that. If you have an engine failure running their oil, you can provide the receipts, show that it was in it. You guys also have an amazing oil analysis program as well, and you guys stand behind your product 100%. So I know that's one of those things where you basically take it from the onus, on the consumer and if the dealership questions it because of a specific failure, a specific issue, because of your oil being involved, AMSOIL steps in and will say, no, we've got all the data, all the science, we will take care of this.
Yep, exactly. We guarantee our product, regardless of if you have brand new or not. Our oil, our filter, we stand behind it 100%, no questions asked. And then to your point about the oil analysis, and I think I alluded to it before too, with maybe the Mopar, checking those lifters, checking that top end, where oil analysis is an absolute great tool to check not only how your engine's doing, but understand how the oil is doing as well. And it's a dual purpose tool that you can look and see, hey, you know what, my engine's doing absolutely great, oil's still doing good, I've got that confidence to keep going. And we've got a fantastic technical team that's on the oil analysis side of our business. So I have complete trust and faith in them to keep our oil analysis program going, and help all the customers out there that want to move forward with oil analysis, and get into it. Right, it's something that people might feel is a daunting task to take an oil sample. Not at all. When you go to change your oil, it's a perfect opportunity to grab an oil sample, and there's proper ways to do it, and our team can help lead that, for any customers that are looking towards that direction.
Let's go to some of your niche products like high mileage. So high mileage is interesting to me because a lot of times let's take it out. I haven't owned the car. Maybe it's a secondary. I bought a used car. It's maybe a used car for my daughter's first car or something. It's got 100,000 miles on it. It's got maybe a questionable service history, but I want to run the best stuff in there. You don't know what's been in there before, so there's a couple things. High mileage obviously is built a little bit different, but it's also helps clean out a lot of the stuff that might be in the engine. Like you're actually sort of scrubbing the inside of the engine and making sure you get it back to a point where it can be as efficient as possible. So maybe talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, no, and make a good point, on kind of how and kind of the direction we headed with that. So high mileage isn't necessarily like a step up or down through the OE XL6 Series family line. We kind of have it designated just off to the side. If you look them in a tier selection, just off to the side. So designed for slightly older engines you might not know what oils ran in them before. Usually the designation's 75,000 miles, kind of a market standard. But as those engines get older, they consume more oil. You got the sludge, the carbon buildup. Maybe it's leaking. How we have built high mileage kind of addresses those situations. That's and its build. So you got some boosted detergency, and then you've got conditioners built in to help swell those seals back up. So those two things in combination with, I hate to say it again, but a good quality base oil, and a proper other additive package build is kind of where high mileage really shines. And we historically, when this product was first launched, it came out before different very popular new oils coming out, where it I don't want to say the two words, the R and R, but we had that squared away a couple of years ago, before someone else jumped in, and the marketing kind of took the toll on that one. But no, it boosted detergency, those seal conditioners, it cleans up engines. We've got data on our website that shows a dirty up sequence of using a low grade oil for a couple 100 hours, and then boom, switch to AMSOIL high mileage, and you can physically watch the graph come down with our data and see the detergency kind of clean that engine up. So it's a great product. I use it a lot in my truck because I've got about 120,000 miles on my truck, so it's a perfect niche area for me, with that product. And also on that side of the, I don't want to say niche products, but in the family is our hybrid line. So this one was kind of a unique one.
Something that wouldn't have mattered to trucks a while ago, and all of a sudden now Toyotas, Ford, you've got e-torque hybrids on the Rams. There's a lot of, all of a sudden you're looking around and hybrids are popping up in the truck and SUV market all over the place.
Exactly. So who would have thought hybrid oil on the Truck Show podcast?
Yeah, right.
Here we are. So it's similar to how high mileage was thought about. Is what is the issue? What do we have for issues with hybrid? How can we come to a solution on what people are experiencing out there? So the way hybrid's built is to help with fuel dilution, because what you have is a lot of cold engines. Cold engines right at the startup, more fuel, get them going. They don't get as hot. The fuel doesn't burn off, right? And another thing you have is moisture. The engine does not get up to temperature. So you see a lot of corrosion in some of these hybrid engines. So a lot of corrosion inhibitors in this oil.
Especially the plugins
well
where you start with a full battery every day and maybe you have short commutes. You may only see the engine when you're on the highway. Maybe you have 25 miles of range and your commute's 10 miles and you never run the engine unless the algorithm says it needs to run or the AC's on a high load day or something like that. And I have people who have hybrids who are bragging, "Oh, I fill up once a month." And I'm like, "Man, you should go drive that thing some more." Yeah, what's your oil look like?
Oil look like milky soup. Yeah. You need to change.
Or all those, you could be like my wife, I love you, dear, who takes her plug-in hybrid and immediately is like leaves the neighborhood with wide open throttle with a cold engine. And, I'm just thinking, man, the inside of that engine is not happy. That's why we lease our cars.
Yeah. No, so you hit it exactly right. Is those engines just don't get up to temperature, and there's some inherent issues with that, and it's fuel dilution, condensation. So we build it for corrosion inhibitors and to handle that extra water in that fuel. So again, I sound like a broken record, but a high quality base oil and additives blended in just right for that product.
All right, so I'll ask you one final question. This one might be a little bit sticky, but I'm gonna throw it out there anyway. If you have run AMSOIL your entire life of your vehicle, do you need to think about at 7,500,000 miles of switching over to high mileage? Let's say you've been running OE or XL. I'm going to assume that if you run Signature, you just keep Signature all the way down to the end. But if you're in some of those more entry low intervals style oils, is that a natural progression? Or if you've been with AMSOIL your whole life, your engine probably doesn't need to swap oils. You're good sticking with what you've been doing.
You're going to be good sticking with exactly the oil that you use, whether it's OE or XL, even SIG. You're going to be fine throughout the life of that engine. So when I bought my truck, I got it with, I think there's 80-some thousand miles on it. First thing I did was high mileage.
Yeah.
And I've gone back and forth between high mileage and SIG and in my truck, and no leaks, no issues. So from if you, my wife has a Subaru and I've run SIG in that since I've started, and I'm going to continue to run SIG, and that's at 77,000 miles now. So the 75,000 miles and the high mileage, to your point, you can run it consistently, for whenever you want. That mileage interval is just kind of thrown out there to kind of help guide you in a direction of, oh, you know what? Yeah, it's leaking a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit older. I'm not sure was running this before. I'm looking to get, that little more value-driven product. I'm going to throw the high mileage in. That's kind of where that one shines. But no, if you started with OE and you're past 75,000 miles, you're totally fine to continue with OE.
Awesome. I mean, this is so great to have you guys on and to have this type of insight. These are all the questions that I think we ask. There's the questions that the forums or AI tend to give you some different answers. So it's nice to hear from the experts, and just really appreciate your time today, guys.
Yep. Thank you, Sean. I do appreciate you having us on here. It was fun.
All right. Well, we're going to do it again because, we got to talk about that special upcoming product that we've been teasing on this, and that's the reformulation of SIG Series. And it's one of my favorite oils. It goes in my Jeep every oil change, and I change it way too often because I love that thing. And I can't wait to hear what you guys have done because, like you said, it's made perfect. So if it's even more perfect, then that's even more awesome.
It's hard to beat perfection, but I think we did it.
All right. Awesome. All right. Well, we'll catch up with you guys soon, and really appreciate you coming on and making time for us.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean.
Thanks again, Garrett and Eric from AMSOIL for the education. We'll have you guys back on when the next upcoming announcement goes live. And I'm really excited to find out more about the announcement coming down the pike because it's a product I use a lot. So I think before we go, I want to have a quick check-in on the Podshed Insiders group.
Join the Podshed Insiders. Why not? We're having fun with all that's being said, hooting and hollering in the online shed. We're
having fun. Talking trucks. And other totally rad and random stuff. No matter where you are, hang out in Holman's backyard. Join the Podshed Insiders. Why not?
That's right, why not? What do you have to lose? If you're already on Facebook, you probably follow a bunch of stupid sites anyway or groups. It's probably like Tennessee Twerking and North Carolina Squat and Texas Barbecue and more. I don't know. So just add Podshed Insiders to that and see what the guys who are listening have to say. We've got a few good ones. We've got Chad Chase recently posted I guess he reposted Dole Men's Center talking about the 2010 Silverado 2500 HD with the offset steering wheel. So there's some funny comments in there and a lot of laughing reactions. Ron Williams passed by my favorite thermometer in the world and let me know that it's still working. But fortunately, Ron says it'll be the last time he passes by for a while. His dad lived in Mesquite, recently passed away, so condolences to your family, Ron, but thanks for posting up the thermometer for us. And then Chris Alter is still trying to fix all the things in his yard. So apparently the shift fork on his Hummer H3 broke off, and he replaced it with a metal one. And Ryan Kukulu says he decided he needed a new truck, so he picked up an 18 F-150 with 66,000 miles, shared that with the group. So our friend from Hollister, Rich, who owns the construction company, Rich Holdaway, he has a big fleet of vehicles, and he says new Bilsteins on old Walter. So it's old, looks like a GMT 800 truck, GMC, and he says it drives like a dream now. So anyway, if you've got some free time and you're already on Facebook, why don't you pop into the Podshed Insiders and show us a picture of your truck, ask us a question, or send us something stupid you found on the internet that'll make all of us laugh. All right, well, I got a plane to catch, so that's going to do it for this episode of the Truck Show Podcast. Please send me your thoughts by emailing the show, truckshowpodcast@gmail.com.
The Truck Show, the Truck Show, the Truck Show, oh, oh.
And of course, we're always on social at Truck Show Podcast or at Sean P. Holman. And if you want to be part of the show, if you want to hear your voice on the show, please leave us a message, 5-star hotline. 657-205-6105. And I miss you guys. I haven't had that many voicemails in a while. Give us a review of what you're driving, or tell us what's on your mind, or did the kids pop wheelies on the e-bike in front of you, or is the guy with the too much tongue weight blinding you with his headlights? Something's got to be bothering you, right? We'll get it out. We'll be your therapist here on the Truck Show Podcast. All right, don't forget to join the Facebook group, Podshed Insiders. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in there. It's awesome. All right, before we go, I got to thank our sponsors, AMSOIL, for those of you who love your vehicles and want the best synthetics, oil change kits, car care products, anything for your truck. AMSOIL.com is where you should go, but where you should really go is truckshowpodcast.com to the featured products page. Drop down, go to AMSOIL. We have a link. It's our link where we get credit for your sales and things like that. So that would be really awesome. If you're already buying AMSOIL, to run it through our link, we'd really appreciate it. Also, awesome knives at a great price. Kershaw. You can find them at kershaw.kaiusa.com. And the best in high-quality adventure, gear, lifestyle, and vehicle reviews only found in the pages of OVR Magazine. Get free access to our digital library for free. Free access for free. I mean, how can you top free access for free? Or a discount on print by heading over to ovrmag.com and using our code at Truck Show Podcast. As always, I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I enjoyed putting it together. Look forward to doing it again real soon, probably from a hotel room in Washington, D.C.
The Truck Show Podcast is a production of Truck Famous LLC. This podcast was created by Sean Holman and Jay Tillis, hosted by Sean Holman, and uses production elements by DJ Omar Khan and Jay Tillis. If you like what you've heard, please open your Apple Podcast or Spotify app and leave us a 5-star review. And if you're a fan, there's no better way to support the show than by sharing it and patronizing our sponsors. Some vehicles may have been harmed during the making of this podcast.
It's gonna be a good day, Tater.
Yeah.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy. I hate driving in the four lows. That line?
Dude, that was painful.